Hello. This week is going to be sort of like a montage of videos. They are from, they're from Skyjacks, Campaign Skyjacks, from Campaign Podcast, which is an RPG tabletop role-playing show, like Critical Role is, but they use Genesis instead of Critical Role. They started doing a Star Wars campaign, which I'm listening to right now. I'm almost done with it. But I listened to Campaign Skyjacks first, which is about sky pirates in a lovely fantasy world. And it's super cool and super fun, and I love it and the characters. So I made a bunch of stuff for it, specifically when they were doing a fan week, Margaret week. I busted out so many drawings for that, and all of them I'm really happy with. This one isn't for that. It's just me doing a study, almost me trying to play with different ways of drawing. I tried to do minimal line art for it, but then I ended up doing some for the ship. But starting out with the drawing, I think I did a decent job at like rendering it, and still making it look like something that I would make, if that makes sense. And then this is where I really started to do the sort of ambient light that I really like. Yeah. So it'll be, this episode, I guess, is like a couple different speed paints, because all of them are under like 8 minutes, so it'll be a longer episode full with more stuff. And yeah, this is the skyship Uhuru, which is their pirate ship, Corsair ship, that the main characters are on. Yeah, I'm not sure how to describe it, but I guess the way that I got into it is I heard that it was the characters were basically a anxious necromancer, a 7-foot-tall non-binary angel, a 15-year-old boy with protagonist anime energy, a little like trickster bastard of man who's a changeling who like changes into animals, and a dead captain who's haunting his own body. Yeah, it's pretty good. This is the other one that I drew of the Maiden. A lot of the show is based on the card game Illimat, made by Together Studios and the Decemberists. I also love the illustrator who created and designed a lot of the stuff for the Illimat decks, and the Luminary deck in particular, which is what the Maiden is based off of. And so basically for this Maiden card, I created it to look like one of the characters, Margaret. Margaret is an NPC that, you meet later in the show, but she's fantastic, easily a fan favorite. And the way that I designed her clothes is basically, because since this takes place in sort of a pirate riddled, in sort of like a piracy era, I imagined it a lot like a 1700s sort of style, and she's often described as wearing older vintage clothes, and so then I drew her in older Nordic dress clothes, because I also believe that the luminaries are sort of based off of, in the show, in the card game they're just, a deck that they play, but in the show they take place of like folklore, and things like that. So the Maiden is like summer and young love, and so then I see them as like older gods, like similar to pagan gods, and so then I drew her in like older Nordic dress, because like Margaret is like a firm believer or practitioner of the luminaries. I'm not sure what the proper term is for people who follow the luminaries in the Skyjacks universe. Follow? I'm not sure if that's even the right word either. But yeah, the luminaries are things that exist and people know that they exist, but then there are people that are more like followers of certain luminaries, I suppose, than other people are, or like more firm believers in like praying to luminaries, versus people who are with what's called the Church of the Slain God. I'm talking too much about Skyjacks, but I mean, this is speed paints about the Skyjacks universe, but basically Margaret is a believer of the luminaries, and she's also seen as wearing older vintage clothes, like for like what they perceive as like older vintage clothes. So then I thought of a dress like that, and yeah, and the Maiden Luminary card from the Illimat deck. Basically the luminaries in the card game you use to like change what's happening in the game, but then in the Campaign Skyjacks show, what they do is like game mechanics wise, if they want to entreat a luminary, they pull from a luminary deck, and then whatever luminary they pull has an effect on sort of what happens and what fate decides. So it's different than rolling, because rolling is specifically things that the character does, but the sort of entreating a luminary is basically what the universe does around them, if that makes sense. A lot of the times they do that for like really big things, like if they're like, I want to sacrifice this thing to like make my magic work, then they'll entreat a luminary and then they'll sacrifice it to a specific luminary. So if they get the Maiden, then they'll have to do something that's like, true to their heart, and like confess love to somebody or something like that. But if they get someone like a butcher, they might have to cut off a limb, because that's the butcher, and that's what they want their followers to do. Yeah, so the show's super cool, super interesting. This is another portrait of Margaret, because all of these were made during Margaret week, and here's where I'm like seeing, like, should I render it this way? Should I render it this way? One of the issues that I had with this drawing is that she's surrounded by black lilies, because she's a part of a organization called the Black Lilies, which I'm sure can be explained in the show better than I can explain it. But I'll try. But basically, like, the black lilies, like, they aren't like actually like super black. They're like a really dark purple, and so then in some areas where like the light's hitting them, or some areas in the center, you can see sort of like they're a bit purpley reddish, and then her hair is like a black, like she has black curly hair. That's one of the big things in the show. I think that's one of the main descriptors. And so then it was difficult to draw the flowers and her hair, so then I had to sort of kind of figure out like how to differentiate between the two when they're sort of close together in value, even though I want the lilies to pop into the foreground and her hair to sort of fade into the background. And so I made the lilies a bit lighter reddish and more saturated, and then I have her hair being like a dark brown because I wanted to differentiate between the line art, and since it's one of the darkest things in the painting besides the line art, it sort of reads a little bit as black, or at least a very dark brown. And you can see here I'm trying to play with, like, should I make the line art lighter, and then should I do this, should I do that with the lilies? In the end, I just sort of made them a bit reddish, and you can see here me is just like playing with the lighting. I just used sort of like a desaturated yellow. You could see the color palette up there, but then I just used color dodge, and then I used different layers of color dodge in like varying degrees of opacity. I use like a million layers when I'm working, all because I want, like, I use like a bunch of different of like the color dodge and like multiply and like different layer modes and things like that. And then for some reason I always get in my head that I want to isolate my colors. I don't do that as much anymore, but yeah, you can see here is me starting with a lighter red and then getting a bit darker in the center, so then you can see the lilies more. And then here is another one. It's the it's her hands doing sort of like a cat's cradle with red string, and then there's like a lily in the center, because the organization of the Black Lilies, I forget the name of the person who commissioned it, or not commissioned it, but the person who wrote it for Skyjacks. One of the things that's great about Campaign Skyjacks is that it's very collaborative. Like, several of the cities and organizations were made by commissioned authors that the One Shot Podcast Network and James commissioned to make it, which is very cool, and leads to a lot of like diverse perspectives in storytelling, which is wonderful. But the what was I talking about? The Black Lilies. The Black Lilies are basically a intimacy and sex work organization, because sex is a part of their work, but they do, like, they're also like therapists, and like they like help people with, you know, whatever emotional or like physical intimacy things they need helping with. Margaret does a lot of the therapist stuff. She says in the show that she likes to fix broken things, and she's very wonderful in that way. Well, she'll like call Travis, one of the player characters who Johnny O'Mara plays, immediately will call him out on his bullshit nonsense that he's always up to, which is wonderful, and she'll do that with everyone, which is great. She's very like an empathetic person whose magic is based in intimacy. So like the more that someone gives her like intimate, like something that's intimate for that person. So like for some people, that may be something physical. For some people, that may be something emotional or like a secret. And like the more that that's shared with her and like the stronger bond they have, that's where like the red string comes in, like the more powerful like store of magic she has. Yeah, and so then this is basically sort of a little character design study I did of Margaret and Travis, and you can see Travis with like this smug little grin on his face. I have no idea how I drew that. I have no idea how I drew Travis so freaking well. But he turned out really good for some dumb reason, which is just like Travis. But yeah, you can see the sort of red string of fate on their pinkies, and he's like trying to do a cool card trick with an Illimat deck. And she's like looking at him like fondly, but like exasperated. That's kind of the expression that I was going for. And I think it turned out really well. I'm kind of happy about it. I have no idea if I could make anything like this again now, but because like, well, I haven't drawn it in like a month, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so go listen to Campaign Skyjacks. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk / rant about Campaign Skyjacks. I mean, that's what this whole video was. It was just an excuse to talk to somebody about Skyjacks. Because I know, like, obviously I interact with people on Twitter and things that talk about it, but nobody in my like immediate friend group or life listens to it. So if you want to, that would be cool. They're very active on Twitter. Yeah. And you can see that like throughout all of the drawings. I used the same color palette, which really helped create like a cohesive look to all of them. And like it really helped like get a weight off of my shoulders because I didn't have to think of a new color palette for each drawing. And this color palette that I came up with was actually from the Margaret Ophelia drawing, which I'll probably do a speed paint of next week. But yeah, and then this is the that's the back of the cards of an Illimat deck. And so I just drew that really quick on the cards. And then I did the, lighting, obviously, that I've always been doing. And, yeah, keeping up this color palette is really nice. Whenever I do, like, Skyjack stuff, I think I'm probably going to keep with this color palette, and maybe just in general. Not the exact, like, greens and things like that, but I think I really like the lighting color palette that I had going on here with the, like, yellow to, like, purple that I did. So then basically I did like the gradient throughout the whole thing in color dodge, and then I just do like color dodges that are like more and more opaque until I get to like the brightest whites, and then I use like a little light pen to like do those little dots, and I do the light pen in those like that like orange and yellow. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Go listen to Campaign Skyjacks, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Eat your favorite food that you like. Go watch your favorite show. The Witcher's out. Season 2 of The Witcher's out. Go watch that. Yeah. I hope you have a wonderful day. And, this is coming out on December 18th. So, have a happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate. I know that Hanukkah's over, but have happy holiday. Okay, bye.